Good morning. Welcome. Congratulations on today's Grand Autumn service. Just last night, our time, the Grand Autumn service took place in Japan under the leadership of Kyoshu-sama and Masaki-sama. And I'm really looking forward to receiving their sacred word so that we can study together when it comes out. In one heart with Kyoshu-sama and Masaki-sama, under their blessing and leadership, we gather today to praise God during this service. Last month, we were blessed with the permission to dedicate the Divine Scroll, both in New Jersey and Florida. And I believe this marked a new phase for us members here in the United States, who are receiving the true will of Meishu-sama through the holy seed of Kyoshu. It was a really powerful service. Members were really moved. If you have opportunity, contact them, talk to them, and hear their experience. I'll share with you guys at another time about the rain and everything that took place for us to receive permission to have the service. But it was really special. It is precisely because we have the holy seed of Kyoshu and the leadership of Kyoshu-sama and Masaki-sama that we are permitted to not only follow the path of Meishu-sama, but to grasp, even if just a little, Meishu-sama's sacred word. In today's hymn, Meishu-sama says, "The time has come when I finally prove to you the truth in the profound mystery of the expression God-human." Meishu-sama further shares about the Messiah descending, and in the last hymn says, "You have to be a human being and God at the same time. You have to be God and a human being at the same time. If not, you cannot save the world." Further in the sacred word, we hear, "In the West, indeed, people call Jesus the Messiah. But let me say that they still do not have a concrete definition of what the term Messiah. The Savior has yet to accomplish his true objective. Or rather, he was not able to manifest his true power until the first half of the 20th century. But now, at last, the time has come when God reveals his true power. In the West, from now on, I am certain that the Christ is going to demonstrate his true potential. In the East, the Messiah will definitely manifest his true divine power. This cannot be understood with the kinds of religious notions we have had until today. A more mystic and majestic divine power will appear for the first time in human history. Further in today's reading of the Bible, we hear about this God-human relationship between Jesus and the Father, where Jesus says, "The Father is in me and I in the Father." Meishu-sama refers to this expression God-human as a truth of profound mystery that he will prove. So how would one go about interpreting the above hymns, today's sacred word, in the Bible? How did we, who are supposedly following Meishu-sama, go about it? Till this day, there must have been various ways this sacred word was received. In these, I believe some have tried to unravel the meaning and depths of this profound mystery that Meishu-sama speaks, based on the face value of what they read, and based on their own interpretations of understanding and belief that they comprehended Meishu-sama's sacred word, thinking, for example, Meishu-sama is God, divine, and that's it. Put Meishu-sama on this pedestal, Meishu-sama different from us, and believed that their life of faith in this and believed to that explanation and followed their life of faith interpretation and thought that they were following Meishu Sama. Others might have realized that based on their limited understanding, comprehending it would be an impossible task, and maybe have chosen to put these sacred words aside and just focus on what they were taught, comfortable with such activities as jorei by raising the hand, or other activities within the church, and in this way believed to be following Meishu Sama. But today, can we honestly say that these postures and attitudes are what it means to really follow Meishu Sama? Because we are all caught up on our own interpretations of Meishu Sama's sacred word and conform to our own likes and dislikes of them, not only did we not receive the true will of Meishu Sama and true meaning and essence of Meishu Sama's sacred words, everyone scattered in separate ways. Instead of truly following Meishu Sama for a long time, we just followed our own likes and dislikes. Isn't that so? For a long time, we say, well, I like this, I don't like this. I'll choose to read only this, we'll put this aside. Or, I feel it means this, I feel it means that, and follow our own way. Many say the church changed from what they used to know and cannot follow Meishu Sama now. But a Kyoshu-centered church has always been the essence of our church. Since Meishu Sama's time when he established this position. Later on, followed by the second and third Kyoshu, Nidai Sama and Sandai Sama, we were able to continue as a church. If it were not for Nidai Sama and Sandai Sama, there would be no church to follow. Years ago, Sandai Sama taught us what makes the church flourish and what keeps it from splitting. Masak Sama reminded us of this in his sacred word, Nidai Sama and Sandai Sama. Masak Sama's message number 14, September 2022. There he quotes Sandai Sama with, "To protect the work of Kyoshu, no matter what, it is only when you have this kind of sincere heart that the sacred grounds flourish, that the church does not split, and that your faith, the members' faith, remains secure." Any split in the church is not due to Kyoshu Sama, but to our own likes and dislikes, to us not following Kyoshu Sama, right? We owe our faith and its security to Kyoshu Sama and the holy seat of Kyoshu. Without it, we would truly not exist at all. Just as we read in the sacred oath, just as we read in the sacred oath in our daily prayers. Furthermore, in this same sacred word of Masak Sama, he shares Nidai Sama's sacred word where she states, as the word Kyoshu literally indicates, it means the master of the teachings. During Meishu Sama's lifetime, he was the founder of the religion and Kyoshu at the same time. The paramount leader and person responsible for how to guide and educate the members is the Kyoshu of that time. In other words, Kyoshu decides how to interpret, compile, unify, and disseminate the teachings. Nidai Sama is saying that the only one who can interpret Meishu Sama's teachings is Kyoshu Sama, Masak Sama says. Why am I sharing this today? As the divine plan unfolds, and now being truly a Kyoshu-centered church, our church is advancing at an incredible speed. We are truly not only getting to know the essence of this church and what it means to be a member of it, but we are being given the opportunity and privilege to serve as a member of this church in the way Melcher Sama truly intends for us to. I repeat that. We are being given the opportunity and privilege to truly serve as a member of this church in the way Melcher Sama truly intends us to. For us to truly be in sync and harmony with this will of Melcher Sama, it is imperative for us to realize that all the sacred word can only be interpreted, compiled, unified, and disseminated by Kyosho Sama. We cannot pick and choose what we like or dislike, what we accept or don't. We can't mold the sacred word to fit our taste. We keep what we agree and redefine or put aside what we don't. Can you imagine if you applied this to your daily life? It would be like opening the hood of your car, looking at the engine and saying, this part doesn't look good here. Let me pull that out. Spark plugs? I don't need that. Oh, why do I need this cable here or this tube carrying gasoline? Let me pull it out and put it in the radiator. It wouldn't work, would it? If we don't do that to things as simple as our cars, how can we do that to our faith? The essence of our life. Seems pretty obvious, and we can think, we know already. We accepted and follow Kyosho Sama. We accept and follow the sacred word as interpreted, compiled, unified, and disseminated by Kyosho Sama. But even though we do, it is important for us to constantly keep ourselves in check. As we read, as we receive the sacred word, many thoughts and feelings come to mind. At those times, we must seek the meaning and understanding from what we are being guided by the sacred word and not be guided by our interpretations, likes, and dislikes of that. Going back to today's hymns and sacred word regarding what Melcher Sama refers to as God human. Today, under the leadership of Kyosho Sama and Masaaki Sama, we are being guided to see, understand, and live this profound mystery that Melcher Sama proved. In the end of August, we received Masaaki Sama's sacred word, Melcher Sama's journey to become the Messiah, that was delivered in the May monthly service, 2022. I've been reading this with some of you during the month, and we're doing it on the online studies. I won't be reading all of it here today, but there is a few points I like to bring up for us to think about. Masaaki Sama, describing Melcher Sama right after his brain hemorrhage, he states, but for Melcher Sama, only a few days after the symptoms of the brain hemorrhage began, he felt that, at the time, Melcher Sama was joyful, saying that this was a great blessing from God. So until now, Masaaki Sama continues, I understood Melcher Sama as an exceptional existence. On our end, when we go through something difficult, we think it is impossible to have the same mindset as Melcher Sama. But Melcher Sama was exceptional, so when we bow in reverence to the divine image of Melcher Sama, we believe it is important to receive this exceptional existence of Melcher Sama into our hearts. This is how I understood it, he says. Is this not how many of us understood and saw Melcher Sama for a long time? Meishu Sama is special, right? Meishu Sama is exceptional. Meishu Sama was able to do that. I can't do that. I did for a long time as well. But Masek Sama reveals something to us that is crucial if we want to truly follow Meishu Sama. He says, but something made me take a second look at this image of Meishu Sama I had in my head. It was the fact that the discipline Meishu Sama underwent to be born anew as the Messiah was so painful that he even thought of committing suicide. Repeatedly. Everyone, he thought about suicide. Meishu Sama thought about it repeatedly. This must be news for many of us, right, who are hearing this for the first time. But it's precisely because we are under the leadership of Kyo Sama that we're receiving the whole truth about Meishu Sama, right? Not just bits and pieces, what we like, what we don't like. And there's a deep meaning why Masek Sama is sharing this with us. He continues, Meishu Sama spoke about this suicide the year after his brain hemorrhage, around the new year in 1955. I'll say it again. Meishu Sama said that the discipline he underwent to be born anew as the Messiah was so painful that he repeatedly thought of suicide. Then Masek Sama shares, this episode had been in my head until now. I knew about it, but recently I was made to think. As I thought about the Meishu Sama who was suffering so much that he wanted to commit suicide, I was starting to get a sense of a genuine Meishu Sama, so to speak, different from the one I spoke about just now, different from the exceptional Meishu Sama I spoke about just now. I was starting to see the real Meishu Sama. What do I mean by this? He says. To commit suicide means to feel hopelessness, the feeling of desperation. Meishu Sama's wanting to commit suicide means that he was thrown into despair, doesn't it? Although Meishu Sama said, it's the morning of hope, on the 6th day after he came down with the symptom of the brain hemorrhage, the truth is, the night before, he could not sleep due to pain in his head, and his hand wouldn't move. In this situation, I think Meishu Sama was actually in despair. Who of us have ever stopped to consider that Meishu Sama felt such despair in 1954, right? We think, oh, Meishu Sama was born anew as the Messiah. It must be all happy thoughts and feelings, right? All joy. Masek Sama continues, for Meishu Sama to think about committing suicide repeatedly means that at some point he was in despair. When was that? It must have been when he could not sleep because of pain, when his hand wouldn't move. He must have experienced the feeling of hopelessness and despair to the verge of wanting to die. And literally, at that point, God asked Meishu Sama, is your current situation one of despair, or is it a hope? I gave you these circumstances. Will you give in to despair or look up in hope? Which one will you choose? When asked these questions, Meishu Sama must have been feeling hopelessness in his heart. But since he taught about purification, even in the middle of his despair, he must have said to God in response, no, this is not a situation to despair over. It is one of hope. That's why he said, it's the morning of hope. That's what I think. This is a very different view of Melcher, right? If you just read that Melcher said it was the morning of hope, you say, well, Melcher is extraordinary, right? After such situation, he can say this is hope. But in his heart, was he feeling that hope? Clearly, he was probably feeling despair, right? As Masak-sama is showing us here. Or what about the way Melcher said, how considerate God is? As the purification came after his plans had come to a close, was it really like that? He could have been thinking that his plans hadn't been completed and the purification had come at worst timing. Maybe he wanted to do this or do that and had future plans. He could have thought it was the worst timing ever. Then Melcher was asked by God, I gave you this blessing of a brain hemorrhage. Do you think this is coming at the worst time? Or is it coming at the perfect time? Which one is it? To this, Melcher must have reported back to God, God, truly, this is the perfect time. I think he shows this to us by having said how considerate God is. Melcher also said that this illness was a good thing and not bad by any means. In this case too, he first must have been asked by God, do you think this brain hemorrhage is a good thing or a bad thing? Which one? Melcher wanted to commit suicide. He felt hopelessness. Normally, with this mental attitude, everything just seems bad. Isn't that so? When something's not going our way, when we have a problem, when we have financial difficulties, when we have an illness, if we stick to that mental attitude, everything just seems bad, does it not? Like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. But Melcher was asked by God, Masak-sama continues, if he thought the brain hemorrhage was a good thing or a bad thing. Melcher must have replied, this is not a bad thing at all, God. This is a good thing. Just a moment ago, Masak-sama says, I spoke to you about the time after Melcher developed the symptoms of the brain hemorrhage, how he felt a joy he hadn't experienced before, the joy that made him cry very hard. Rather than saying it was Melcher-sama's joy, I say it was God's. God who loved Melcher-sama, his son. What do I mean by that? God gave Melcher-sama an illness of a brain hemorrhage. Receiving this illness, Melcher-sama was thrown into despair. But then he overcame this despair and responded to God. Oh God, this is not something to lose hope over. Rather, this illness is a hope. At first, I thought, why now? But actually, you gave me this illness at the perfect time. Oh God, this illness is not a bad thing. It is a good thing. I believe Melcher responded to God in this way when he received his illness. How happy God must have been. It's pretty obvious as we read in the text, but I want to re-emphasize. Look at Melcher-sama's posture during the process of this illness. Even though Melcher-sama felt despair, felt this could have been the worst timing ever, Melcher-sama was seeking God's truth, God's happiness, what God wanted for him. When we are sick, when we are ill, when we have an issue, what do? What is it? God, I need this. God, I want that, right? Why can't you fix that in this way? We don't ever turn to God and say, God, you prepared this for me right now, as Mishama did, right? As the perfect thing that I needed. Masaksama says, right? How about us? He clarifies that, right? Within us, he says, how about us? When something inconvenient happens to us, we usually think, why now? This is so bad, don't we? But who can deny that it is God who makes all those inconvenient things occur? That is, when something bad happens, if we can respond to God by saying, oh God, this came at the perfect time. You are so considerate, oh God. This purification is cause for joy and hope. What I'm receiving is a hope, oh God. God will be happy for sure. Which one do we want? To truly please God or please ourselves, right? God is our parent, Masaksama says. So he does good things for us and good things only. Even though various things may appear bad in our eyes. So I believe that as the parent, God was truly happy about Meishu-sama, his own child, receiving God's paternal love, even though Meishu-sama was in great pain. Even in this world, in the case where a parent has to do something out of necessity for the child he or she loves, even though it is painful, and then that child responds with, Dad, Mom, thank you. The parent would be really happy, right? As such, God who exists within Meishu-sama became very happy about Meishu-sama's accepting his paternal love. In turn, Meishu-sama felt God's joy and became happy too. I believe this is what led him to the state of mind that made him cry so hard out of joy and to say that the happiness he felt was beyond words. Just a quick pause, right? We all want to feel joy, right? We all want to feel happy. But what joy do you want? Do you want the joy that you know? The joy as a human being? Of what you think is joy? But how about this joy that Meishu-sama felt? That made him cry so hard with happiness? Made him cry so hard out of joy to say that the happiness he felt was beyond words. Wouldn't you want to experience that for you? I know I do. Masaksama shares, right? The grand ceremony to celebrate the birth of the Messiah is about truly having Meishu-sama as our model from here on. But even though we say that we will have Meishu-sama, who was born anew as the Messiah, as our model, and that we aim to be born anew, our actual thoughts are more like, we probably won't even reach that point anyway. Or, Meishu-sama was a man of greatness, chosen by God, and we are very far from that. Who of us have these thoughts, right? Think like this. So unattainable, so impossible. If these are our true inner feelings, then the sincere efforts Meishu-sama made for God within his heart that I was just talking about until now will be all for nothing. If we end it with the thinking that only Meishu-sama was special and that's why he was able to think that way, then it's all for nothing. If we continue telling ourselves Meishu-sama is exceptional, right? Different than me, It's all for nothing. Melcher Sama is someone who fully knows and has gone through the heartache and suffering, That's why he understands our suffering, sorrows, and despairs, right? When you say follow Melcher Sama's example, what exactly is the image of Melcher Sama that you have? If you make Melcher Sama a special existence, raise him up as an idol and say, my aim is to be born anew and that's my goal, as empty words only, then you will never reach that point. Melcher Sama is someone who has experienced similar pain and despair as us, and in particular, when he received the brain hemorrhage. But he believed that if God is love, then he would never drive me to despair, quotes, and then said, it's the morning of hope. I believe he said this with the intention to profess his faith to God. Everybody look at what Masak Sama is saying here. Melcher Sama was not lying to himself because he felt despair and saying this is hope. He wasn't saying I'm feeling hope even though I'm in utter despair. It's not about a feeling. He was professing his faith to God. How about we? Before we profess our faith, usually we say, God, prove to us, right? Change the situation so I can say I believe in you. How many miracles do we need to physically experience to say God is alive, to believe that God is alive, to profess our true faith to God? Melcher Sama was showing us the true faith we should profess to God. And Masak Sama continues, so if we are to follow Melcher Sama's example, we must follow it 100%. He is not an untouchable human being or a made-up existence. He is someone who has experienced the same suffering and pains of the heart as we have. This Melcher Sama is our model, and we too are aiming toward the same goal that Melcher Sama accomplished. If we do not think like this, there's no point to any of this. Through the brain hemorrhage, Melcher Sama was able to think like this. He put in an effort. So if we are to follow Melcher Sama's example, then we too must follow his effort. We're not just following words. We're not just saying, oh, that's nice. Our effort too. Melcher Sama said, and going back to the hymn that we read, right? You have to be a human being and God at the same time. Melcher Sama is not negating all those human feelings, is he? He went through all of them just like us. You have to be God and a human being at the same time. If not, you cannot save the world. When we are overwhelmed with issues, when we are overwhelmed with illness, problems, conflict, at that moment, we have to put in an effort like Melcher Sama did, as Masak Sama is showing to us here. We have to live that example. That Melcher Sama who was born anew as the Messiah, who became God human, who is the proof of that, is alive within us. It's not impossible. It's not unattainable. This alone, I mean, there's so much more, right? But here we can see the inseparable, is it not even the word, reason why you can't separate Melcher Sama from Melcher Sama, Melcher Sama from the church. the holy seat of Kyoshu from the church. For a long time, we were trying to do it our way. And this very essence, which is how to save humanity, was never clarified. And today, through the sacred words of Kyoshu-sama, through these sacred words of Masaaki-sama, he's clarifying that for us. And for that, I am truly and eternally grateful. I mean, there is so much in the sacred word. We can go on and on, right? There's so many different parts. And I truly encourage everyone to seek, right? Seek to receive this truth of Meishu-sama. There's no point in saying I follow Meishu-sama and I leave the sacred word at home and I don't read it. I don't look at it. I don't seek. What are we following then? Right? We're just going to be caught up in those issues and not know why it's happening, not know how to serve God. Keep putting Meishu-sama on a pedestal and saying we're following Meishu-sama. We are truly blessed, and it's a truly exciting time. So hold on tight to Kyoshu-sama, to Masaaki-sama, to the sacred words, and let's truly follow Meishu-sama, putting in our effort on a daily basis, putting in our effort when we're overwhelmed with all those thoughts and feelings, and truly serve God in this work that God is doing of salvation of humanity through this God-human existence. Thank you so much. May all honor, may all glory be returned to God.